Hi guys, and welcome back to the Female Fitness Podcast. I'm your host Danni, and today I have the pleasure of being joined by Charly. So myself and Charly actually met through, I think we originally met through Compact. We were both sponsored by Compact, which is Jasmine Jeffrey's business. It's in the competing industry, and they basically cater for competitors' needs when it comes to skin prep, everything they need throughout their time competing essentially. So we met through being sponsored by Compact, and we've both now moved away from competing a little bit more, and we've followed a slightly similar path. So Charly is an online coach herself. Charly, would you give us a bit of, I know I've just summarized things briefly, but would you give us a bit more of a rundown on like how you got into the industry and where you're at now, and who do you coach?
So hi. It is quite crazy actually when we look back to like how things started, and we have taken quite a similar path, definitely I think with our path in coaching. But yeah, I got into the industry through competing. I got into the industry quite early days, competitively, and that was really my first experience of the fitness industry. So I kind of went 0 to 100 when I got into the industry straight in, and that's kind of what I knew from the get-go was the competitive side of the fitness industry. So really the past couple of years I've really kind of come into my own, and I'm sort of grown through that, I guess, because I spent such a long time with a competitive physique goal. And now I've definitely gone down more of a holistic path, probably a combination of maturity and learning, as we all do as we move through the fitness industry and we learn what's valuable to us. So yeah, I've gone down more of a holistic path. Still got my own sort of physique goals. I'm a young woman, we all are, but a much more well-rounded like approach to fitness and health. And now I've sort of transitioned. I coached a few people to stage, obviously, because that's once your background, that's what you're comfortable with. But definitely always had in the back of my mind that wasn't my ideal client. So now my business is definitely taking a turn where I'm working with those ideal clients, women from kind of the age of sort of mid-20s right up through to like menopausal age in their 50s and dealing with changing bodies, and just helping them to feel their fittest, their healthiest, and allowing them to achieve goals without sacrificing kind of their relationships with their body image or with food, and showing them the pathway to do that, which is really rewarding.
Yeah, it's really nice to hear, because we have quite a similar message now after both taking a step back from like pushing and promoting the extremes. And I did a podcast actually, I think it was a week and a half ago now, where I sort of summarized my own journey. And it's funny because I've come back literally full circle. Like I got into the industry promoting the message that I'm promoting now. And it's crazy looking back and you're like, oh, like I've come back to what I got into the industry for in the first place.
Got it right first time.
Yeah. So have you always appreciated the benefits of training and exercise beyond it being just a mean to manipulate your body composition? Or has there been points where you have trained purely for aesthetics, such as when you were competing?
So to be honest, I think actually the majority of time up until the past couple of years, I always had an aesthetic goal. That was just how I came into the industry. I think initially, maybe when I started resistance training, there definitely was a feeling of, like feeling strong. And that was kind of 2013, 2014. And women just weren't doing that at that time. And I was like 19, 20, and I just loved being different. So anything where it's like, oh, people aren't doing that, I wanted to do it. Like I was in that phase of my life. So that's what pushed me towards that, was like, oh, it's different and I like feeling strong. But it very, very quickly, within like 12 months of me starting to resistance train, someone just mentioned the word bikini show to me, and that off that went then. So it was quite a quick transition. So I do feel like I have always had an aesthetic goal previously. I know, like, I listened to that podcast that you did, and you obviously came from a sporty background when you were younger. But I never was sporty, and I think I always wanted to be, but I came from a family that weren't sporty, that didn't kind of appreciate health and fitness. So I never had those doors open to me, or that didn't feel accessible. And it was when I kind of, it's like early teens, I started dancing. That was kind of my experience. And then and naturally my body got smaller, and then obviously I wanted to just be more shapely and strong, and that's how I then got into the gym. But I didn't have a sporty background, so for me competing gave me that kind of oh, there's something else here, but it was still quite closely tied to aesthetics. So for a long time it was manipulating my body composition, and it's kind of the past few years that I've really started to appreciate the things outside of that. So
yeah. Did you find that it took you quite a while to almost recondition yourself to recognizing the benefits of like exercise beyond it being just, oh, I'm going to do this to manipulate my body?
yeah, I think it did, because I think it's really hard, like, you know yourself, when you come out of that bubble, and there's times when you think you think you're out of it and you're not, like, in the kind of the mindset that you're in, it's not like a switch that you flip. So that transition wasn't overnight. It did take me time, and I think even just checking yourself now, like, I think there's times when you thought you appreciated the other things, like, oh, you know, I'm stressed, I'm going to go to the gym. But then actually looking back on that, you're like, because it was something I could control to control my body. So I think coming out of the other side of that, I realized that that transition took a little bit longer than maybe it looked on the surface. But it is challenging, I think, and not just from your own experience, but obviously pressures of social media and things like that, and the identity that is very much attached to like the bikini girl and the friends that we create around it. And coming out of that is, you know, there's so much more than just flipping that switch to yourself. There's all the socio things that are, you know, that are attached to it as well, and the identity. So yeah, it was a hard transition, and I think it'll always kind of be a bit of a work in progress to like check ourselves as well.
Yeah. I think as well, like it almost takes sometimes you to take a step back from being within a certain situation for you to gain a certain perspective on things. Because when you're like wrapped up in, for example, competing and manipulating your body, like through your training, that being your sole motivation really with competing because you're getting judged on your body, it can take you stepping back from that to like actually realize that there is almost more to life and there's more to training than that. Because when you're wrapped up in it, it can seem like, oh, I need to carry on with this, I need to set myself the next goal within this sport, and you get so like all consumed by it, if that makes sense.
No, definitely. And I think the thing for me, and I think I've always been fairly like self-aware, and I think there was definitely things that would jar me when I was doing it, that I knew this doesn't sit right, but I couldn't quite work it out yet as to kind of, well, what is my pathway? And I think for me that the thing that kind of almost made it not enjoyable was when I started doing really well at it, because initially when I got into it, I was like, this is different, no one's doing this is my thing, and I was good at it from the start. And obviously you know yourself, like bikini got more and more competitive over the years, the conditioning got harder, more good girls were coming into it, so you had to push harder. And it got to a point where it's like, if you've consistently placed well, you can't show up and not place well. So it goes away from being your journey to being like, I can't fail at this, and all of the external pressure that comes with that. And like you say, when you are so wrapped up in that, you're always thinking, well, like, I have to do this show and I have to do well, and there's always that push forward thing. And it's actually when you take a step back, like you say, like, was that my goal, or was that something that I allowed from society around me and the bubbles that I was in to push that trajectory? And you know, there was times when I remember prepping for Alicante, and like, you know yourself, like, you only have to put one picture up shredded and your inbox is full. You've got instant gratification with all of these likes on social media. And then it was really jarring, because the inboxes that I was getting were from girls that I would think like, wow, you look amazing, you're so healthy and everything. They'd be like, oh, goals. And then I'd be like, that doesn't sit right with me because I feel horrific. And that's when I started to kind of realize that transition. And like you say, of like, is this actually what I want to do, or do I need to kind of take a step back here and figure this out?
Yeah, it's so good it's like really interesting to hear. And I think it's really good that you've shared that, because it's made the point of like, sometimes on surface level, these things can look like what people would call goals, but then like you said, behind the scenes, you never know what's going on, and that person might not feel great. their health might be in the gutter, like they might not actually be happy and fulfilled and following their own goals. You never know what's going on like beyond surface level, especially when it comes to things like social media.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, like, don't get me wrong, and I'm like, I loved competing for the majority of the time. Like, I did it for 7-8 years, like, and obviously had little pockets off in between, but I have some great memories of it. And I actually was looking through old posing videos, and I was like, it's funny because what I take from that now is actually not how shredded I was, not how I looked, any of that. The only thing I take away now is this, how much I showed up for myself when I didn't think I could. And that's something that competing taught me. But that isn't linked to my body image, anything else it brought to my life, because in fact it started completely taking from my life. And it is so easy to hide that on social media. So I think we can attach so much to kind of a physical goal that you've got to just be self-aware to the point where it's, if you kind of, and I guess you realize this from a coaching perspective, which is again why we kind of have more process-based goals now in the way that we coach clients as well, that if that journey stops serving you, you need to knock it on the head, because no matter how shredded you get or how big your glutes get, you will never be happy. And I think when you've actually been there yourself, and you've come away from that and you've actually experienced it and stepped back, like you've got the kind of the badge to show you've been there, it can be quite powerful helping other people.
Yeah, definitely. And so going back to training and exercise, do you think that your sort of motivation for training has an impact on your body image and also your enjoyment of the process?
In terms of, like, do you mean like what the also in training enjoyment?
So,
I think.
Yeah, so like when it comes to like your motives for training, so say your motivation was to manipulate your body composition versus your motivation being to improve your overall health and well-being, improve your function, etc. Do you think that the motivation for training has an impact on A, your body image, and 2, your enjoyment of the process itself?
Yeah, 100%. Because I think, I don't know about you, but I think if you've only got that kind of results-based goal where it's kind of this, I'm doing this to get me from A to B, and that's that, you lose a lot of the in-between. Like, you don't value the things in between, and I don't know about you, but I always felt never good enough, because you will never ever get there. Like, you think you might on paper get from A to B, like, you know yourself, if you look back at say a prep or something where you did like 14 weeks and you can physically see the difference, but you never actually feel that internally, because you always feel not good enough if you're just striving for a results-based goal. So I think actually when it comes down to training enjoyment and valuing the in-between, and I think something again that we can step back and see is like, it's all about that in-between journey. And you know, you think about time passing, like your life is going to pass, like you have to learn to appreciate what's going on in the moment and the value that's bringing into your life, because it's just going to pass by you. So 100%, I think in regard to like body image, when I'm enjoying my training, whatever that looks like, what, you know, right now that's different, very different to how it used to be. My body image is definitely at its best when I'm not just focusing on a results-based goal, because I think you appreciate your body a hell of a lot more. And I think reminding people, it's just something I do with clients all the time, that body image is not aesthetics. They are two separate things, and body image is completely in your mind. And it's how you feel and how you see yourself, rather than actually what you look like.
Yeah. And I think sometimes people will almost get into training and manipulating their nutrition thinking that what they want to improve is their body composition, when in reality it's their body image that needs to be addressed and improved. And it's an important thing to establish that the two are two separate entities, so that you know what you're working to improve and you're doing the right thing for you. And like you said, when you do focus on those process-based goals, that has a positive impact on your body image. And if it's your body image that needs to change, you might be doing the complete wrong thing by training just for aesthetics, when people usually jump to having, say, a fat loss goal.
Yeah, and 100%, I think you can do both, and I think they both feed into each other. But it's very much, I think, and we see this from a coaching perspective, is how we celebrate people's wins and what we see as wins, like the non-scale based victories and things like that. That it's really putting the value there, because that the rest of it will take care of itself. If your body image is in the right place, if you're mentally in a good place, if you're valuing all of these little things, then naturally you will move into a healthy body. And I think a lot of the time I see with clients, they'll come to you and maybe say, I want to lose 2 stone, or I want to be this weight. And actually, when they start the process, a couple of pounds and a completely flipped body image changes their life. And they actually start to realize that it's not about the actual weight that they've lost, but what they've learned along the way, and the lifestyle that they've built for themselves, and the relationship with themselves. And that is the win. So no, 100%. And I think we know as individuals and clients know that they are 2 separate things. And I think it's interesting to see, particularly with clients, that mindset shift from what they think they want to actually what they end up achieving, which I think is a whole lot more than just a scale-based victory.
Yeah. And we've spoken a little bit about your motivation for training changing as you've grown as a person, like on a personal level. Do you think your professional development has influenced your motives for training as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think definitely the past sort of 12 months, I think reinvesting in myself and sort of education and things, I think, again, having the ability to do that, because competing is expensive, and coming out and actually going, no, do you know what, I'm going to put my money into my business, and doing that, getting more confident in who I want to be as a coach, the kind of education that I'm then filling my head with, that's definitely helped in terms of making me more confident as a coach professionally, and also just kind of reinforcing the message that I want to kind of communicate, because oh god,
don't worry. You were saying about how your professional development has sort of like reinforced what message you want to put out there into the world.
Yeah, so yeah, in terms of my own motivation for training, then, like, if I think about how I want to coach clients and aligning my own training with that, I've got to walk the walk and like talk the talk type of thing. And that's easy when you're competing. It's like, well, I'll do it too, and then I'll prep people to do that. But it's a lot harder when you have process-based goals to actually keep yourself in check and make sure that you are doing what you expect from your clients. So I think as I've got more confident in myself as a coach and my education, and it's definitely, I did EIQ nutrition last year, and that kind of changed the game for me, really. And being able to, I think, coach and hold people accountable in a compassionate way that supports that was really a game changer, because we're so used to like the usual system of like, you check in, you lose weight, you do this is how you manage the process. And that gave me a really good, like, okay, these are things that you can celebrate with people that will get them great results from such a more holistic way. And then I applied that to myself. It wasn't just me applying that to clients, it was applying that to myself as well, and me actually feeling the benefit of that as a coach and being able to communicate that confidently then as a coach as well. And as a result of that, my training has changed massively, and it's completely about how I feel rather than how I look.
And yeah, I think it's so powerful putting those things into practice on yourself as well as with clients, because you really get to see the benefits then of having those process-based goals and having the focus away from just being manipulating your body composition. It really like solidifies that to yourself and shows you how powerful it is. So then when you're applying that with clients, you're like, you know how much it's going to change their life essentially.
Yeah, again, so it's like, yeah, if you've got that experience yourself and you're like, you know, I've lived this, I've done it, and I know how great this can feel. And I think especially when you're working with such a diverse range of people, being able to relate to them on that level, you know, that they could be mothers, they could be older women that their bodies are changing. Like you've got to find that common ground with people where you kind of go, you know, this will enhance your life in a multitude of ways that is aside from the way that you look. And the interesting thing being that actually I feel like year round now my body is in a much better place all year round by doing that. So again, that's something that I can communicate to clients and say, like, if it is your aesthetics that you're worried about or that you are wanting to come and get a handle on, maybe that actually when you actually work on your body image and you have this control and empowerment over your life where you're like so proud of the life that you live and it's a health focused life that you live in, your body won't need these dips all year round, this cutting into holidays and this, that, the other, and naturally you will just fall into a healthy body by focusing on these processes.
Yeah, I can fully relate to that 100%. And I think like mastering maintenance as well from a body composition perspective can be one of the most powerful things, rather than constantly having to manipulate your body composition to an extreme level, whether that be like, you know, you'll see a lot of people, they'll go through constant cycles of aggressive fat loss followed by being in an aggressive surplus, and that definitely serves a purpose. But I think once you've done that, or if you're someone who doesn't need or want to push the extremes, if you can learn to master this middle ground and then just maintain where you're at rather than going through these constant cycles, it's such an incredible thing to be able to do, and so powerful.
I agree. And I think, again, from the background that we come from, like, you know, you say if you were going through, I'm going to use the word, like the bulk phase, where you are like maybe putting on some excess body fat as well as tissue, like muscle tissue, that you kind of spend half of your life almost feeling like you have to justify what you look like. Oh, I'm not dieting at the moment, or oh, I'm going to wear this hoodie because, you know, I'm not at my prime. And like what kind of life is that? Like, who wants to live there? That's the kind of, that's the mentality that I'm in at the moment. And like you say, if you're pushing an extreme, you have to kind of accept that sometimes that's necessary, but that for me shouldn't be the norm, especially for women. You know, it's a bit of a storm of body image issues anyway, to actually feel like we have to go into this system where we spend half of our life justifying because we might be holding a little bit more body fat, and then having to punish ourselves into a cut to be able to show our body off. It's just this cycle of turmoil, it feels like, I think, for women. So like you say, I think actually mastering the in-between and staying there, and actually how much you can, you know, if you want to add muscle tissue, for example, like how much you can actually do when you are consistently at maintenance and not having to live in extremes is, like you say, it's really, really powerful. And I think the cyclical kind of diet bulk or diet push kind of mentality, and you see it anyway with holidays, like, you know, I have to diet into a holiday to feel worthy to wear a bikini. That's a body image issue. That's not a scale, weight, or body fat issue. And actually being able to just feel confident all year round, I think it's a similar process that you've probably gone through yourself, and being able to be like, oh, I'm going away in a few weeks, yeah, I'll wear a bikini and I'm not stressed about it. Like, that is like gold dust. Like that is the goal, I think. And that is, you know, for me as a coach now, that to get a client to that point is massively satisfying over getting someone shredded.
Yeah, exactly. And something that I've been trying to get my girls to do personally as well is, when we've got photo shoots coming up, actually pushing them to just do it as they are without running a fat loss phase for the photo shoot, because they already have a great body image. They're sat in a great body composition and they feel great within themselves. So then, like, why would you pursue a fat loss phase for a photo shoot when you already look and feel amazing and you're holding that? Like, you're your best self. So show up as your best self. Don't manipulate your body composition for this shoot. And that is rewarding in itself, because it shows you that you don't have to manipulate your body composition to look and feel your best self. You can just show up as you are if you live a certain lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly. And when you're not toying with the extremes, like, there is never a need to not be anything but yourself, because you are living your best life, but you're like living that healthful life, and, you know, then you're proud to get in front of the camera regardless of kind of, you know, what that might look like, which 9 times out of 10, if you are focused on process-based goals, will look like a healthy body type anyway. So it is definitely all body image related. And I think, I don't know about you, but I've definitely done shoots where I've been really, really lean, that maybe post show, or I've dieted into, and it's been a horrible time getting that lean. And I look at those photos and I don't like them, because like, people might go, oh my God, goals, oh my God, you look amazing. But like, all I see is how horrific I felt. So like, you want to look back at these things and be like, I looked great and felt great there, and that kind of oozes on the camera. Like, you know, we did our shoot last year, and like those photos, I love looking at those photos because we were all just so like happy and just ourselves, and everybody that was there was just like, yeah, I feel great. And I don't think any of us like dieted into that shoot. And you look back at those photos and they're the ones that you're proud of. So I think there's from a coaching perspective, like using that experience and reminding people of that, and like you say, putting those things in place where you're like, do you want to rock that boat when you already kind of have the golden nugget of great body image, a healthy body? Do you want to rock that boat just so that your abs are a little bit more defined in front of the camera? Like, is that worth it? And actually getting them to weigh that up.
Yeah, exactly. And so, out of interest, what does your training look like now, Charly? And what are your reasons for doing what you do?
So my training's a little bit of a hybrid of everything at the moment.
Same.
It's like, do everything. So always have some kind of resistance training as a foundation, which is something that obviously I'll preach to clients for a functional base. I know that you do a lot of like functional training, don't you? But I still enjoy traditional resistance training, but for a functional reason, in terms of like, I want my body to be strong, I want to be able to move well, I want to be injury free, all that usual kind of thing, and all of the great health benefits that come from having a little bit more muscle tissue. But I really, realistically, if I'm being honest, I only resistance train 2, maximum of 3 times a week. And yeah, I follow kind of a rough structure, but in terms of like, as a coach, you know, you go in and you go, right, I'm going to do 1 warm up, like 1 isolation exercise, 1 pull, 1 push, and then it follows a rough structure. But what I actually do will vary because I just want to enjoy my training. And again, with the splits, like I'll kind of do maybe like glute hamstring because that's kind of the only area I'm interested in that may grow. That's great, fine. And then a kind of mash of like full body type training. So I kind of keep that interesting. I don't kind of, not in a rush to get any bigger. So I don't kind of push in terms of like doing the same thing and pushing numbers every week. I've done my bit with that and I'm kind of happy with where I'm sat. So kind of resistance from a maintenance and functional perspective. And then whatever I enjoy, really. Right now I'm doing yoga at least twice a week. Just because, and I feel like a lot of us have put that into our life from like a
I'm the same
mental health perspective.
Yeah, I'm doing yoga twice a week, and honestly, it's one of the best things I've ever decided to do. I love it.
It was actually a client of mine that inspired me to do that, because I used to dabble in it on and off. Like I'd kind of go to classes here and there, and I've done it for years. Like we've got a really nice hot yoga studio by us, and like I've got comfortable with the movement, so I know that I can follow a movement, know what I'm doing. I can flow and know what I'm doing. But it's something that I spoke about with a client, because she was definitely going down a more kind of process-based type of training. We were pulling her away from like kind of constraints around training and stuff, and she included yoga, and I thought, you know what, like I'm going to take inspiration from her, and I actually put it in myself, and it's been incredible. I think when you spend so much time, I guess, talking to people and running a business, I think especially for me, it really, really helps to kind of disconnect and just bring myself back to myself and calm my mind. So for me, yoga, and again, if you'd have asked me like 3 years ago, if I was going to do yoga, I would want to be the girl that's standing on her head and is the best at yoga in the room. But now that's not really what I do it for at all. And it couldn't be more different. I'm like, do you know what? I'm going to do a simple flow, and my aim is to feel good when I finish this flow. And that's it. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm sat. And then I'm trying to get little bits of like cardio in, like runs here and there, but that is more just because I really miss that kind of that feeling when you push yourself from a cardio perspective, and you kind of get that rush. Again, it all down to how I feel, not necessarily because I want to manipulate my body for it, but because I coming from a dancing background, I miss that rush of like finishing something that's making your heart beat out of your chest and feeling amazing.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And like going back to being process focused and the benefits of training outside of it being a means to manipulate your body composition, you know, you've given examples with yoga and resistance training there, and with your cardiovascular exercise, you know, heart health, like it's so important. And so like overlooked. People don't focus on that sort of thing. And that leads quite nicely into the next question as well. So if someone is trying to be more process focused with their training, what measures of progress might they use themselves, or if they're a coach with clients, if they're trying to promote that approach?
Something that well, obviously from doing it myself, and something that I do with clients and that I get them to think about is celebrating small wins and how they feel in the moment, and actually really, really honing in on that daily. So taking a bit of a pause and recognizing how they feel, and getting used to kind of writing feelings down and journaling, and actually taking time to have gratitude for all of the things their body can do and allows them to do. So where you might necessarily, in a traditional way, when you're monitoring something from a body composition perspective, you would look at like your photos, and that's how you would know if something was quote unquote working. Whereas I think when you've got a more process-based goal, it's all down to how you feel and how it's impacting your life. So for me, and again, the last sort of 12 months, my check-in process with clients has moved from, we still take data, obviously, because it's beneficial on the whole, but it's a lot less data focused and a lot more sort of qualitative data focused, in terms of the data's there in the background, but I'm more interested in terms of what they've got to say, how they feel, how they're performing, how their exercise, their activity is affecting the rest of their life, and really getting them to recognize that. Because I think when you're looking for like in terms of results-based goal, we talk a lot about like delayed gratification, and like you just got to keep showing up and then the results will come, and actually you lose that kind of appreciation for the instant gratification and the instant wins that come from in the rest of your life when you focus on the process. Yeah. So actually really getting them to focus on that, and how much it's enhancing their life, and celebrating small wins helps them to have that appreciation for the process. And naturally, if they do have a, they want a result, doing that will actually help that. But I think focusing solely on the results, it actually is only going to do nothing but take away from the value of everything else. So.
Yeah, and with some goals that are non-body composition related, there's some data that can go with them that we could use, such as like if someone has a high resting heart rate, we could look to lower that. If someone has issues with blood pressure, we could look to change that data. There's certain like process-based almost measurements that we could use as well. But I think what you said about it being more about how you feel is really important, because your body is the best feedback you'll ever get most of the time.
And I think that like when you get into this position where you are comfortable here, and you can actually think about that again, because I think definitely there is times, and maybe even starting out with a client, that they maybe can't listen to their body signals reliably, but actually when you get to that position where you can, that is really, really powerful, because your body literally does just tell you. And it's the same with hunger signals and fullness signals, and getting people to recognize that as well. Again, if you're coming from a dieting background, like you can't trust those signals all of the time, but when you actually get into a space where you can do that, again, your body will literally say, I am tired, I need a rest, I am hungry, I need more food. Like the body signals then become a lot more reliable, and actually getting people to trust that is massive.
It's funny as well on that note, I had a call with a client actually yesterday, and we were talking about, she said, should I think about getting an Aura ring? And I was like, well, you could, but it's quite a big investment, and what is it going to tell you that your body isn't already telling you? Like, if you're tired, you've probably not had a good night's sleep. Like, what is the Aura ring going to tell you more than what you're already getting from your body? Is that going to change what you're doing in terms of optimizing your sleep? No, it's just more data, and often that additional data can cause more stress than it's worth.
Yeah, like analysis paralysis. Like it's we monitor the things as coaches that we need to know for that client. So what we choose to monitor will be client dependent on their goal, and where that will also change depending on as they grow and they are able to focus on different measures. But again, like with clients, like if we're getting them to think about their NEAT levels, for example, like the only real thing that a fitness tracker can tell me as a coach is their general NEAT levels. Like even steps are a general measure of their NEAT levels. So like that is pretty much, I want you to wear a step tracker when we very first start coaching, pretty much, so I can see generally how active you are. Other than that, I think, like you say, like what else is it going to tell you? Your body will tell you that. And sometimes the data actually can cause more stress than not, because you could have a great night's sleep and your watch, your Fitbit or your Oura Ring could be like, oh, you didn't get into a deep sleep last night and you kept waking up every half an hour, and you'd be like, well, I feel great, but my sleep's not good. And then you start thinking, well, I need to do something about it. But does it matter if you feel great? No. Like, you know, and vice versa, that you could wake up feeling horrendous and the watch or the ring could tell you that you had a great night's sleep, but it doesn't matter if you feel awful. You need to do something about it. So I think that's really important, because I think definitely when people start their journey, they want all of the things, and they want, you know, to monitor everything, and actually being able to pull the actual data that is important to that client at that time, and getting them to focus on the non-negotiables and what's relevant to them, and kind of filter out everything else, it is important as well.
Yeah. And for those listening who might be trying to move away from having such a heavy body composition related focus, I thought it would be useful to go through some of the benefits of training or exercise beyond it being just a means to manipulate your body composition. So what are some of those benefits that training or exercise can offer us?
God, where do we start? So I think this is hard, because I have to kind of flip my mindset back to, like, if I didn't have any of this, where would I be? So obvious health benefits of, kind of like we've already spoken about, from like a cardiovascular perspective and a disease perspective, and your overall, your general health, your mobility, your functional strength. And I don't know about you, if you take time off training, I don't know, like we're all human, like things get on top of us. I definitely had a period of time where work got on top of me and I took a little bit of time off, and I could feel my body changing. So injury prevention, you know, your general strength, and it's something that I see definitely with like family members and things that maybe don't put exercise into their life, like when they are getting to a certain age, when they are getting injuries, and maybe their bodies aren't helping them in terms of the functionality of their body. You can see that very, very clearly. So definitely from an injury prevention and a health perspective. And really for me, the biggest one on top of that being a mindset perspective, a mental health perspective, not just keeping like your body functioning, but your mind function as well, which is, I guess, we're so all much more aware of that nowadays than we were even a couple of years ago. But, you know, particularly the past couple of years, I think people have really started to recognize that, and wellness has become a lot more discussed in terms of taking care of your mental health and how important that is. And I think everybody saw that in the lockdowns and things like that, about, you know, getting outside, moving, and protecting yourself and your mental health. So I think from a physical and mental health perspective, exercise it shouldn't really be a negotiable. None of that is related to our body composition. It's not a case of like we should all be trying to be in smaller body types, but we should all be trying to be as well as we can mentally and physically. And for an adult, well, and for kids, but as an adult, exercise is really non-negotiable in terms of creating a healthy mind and a healthy body.
Yeah. And just to add to that, like things like stronger bones, decreased likelihood of issues like osteoporosis. We discussed earlier, improved body image as we focus on function rather than just our appearance. Things like being able to run around with your kids if you have kids. Improved social health. That's one that I've found, obviously joining a CrossFit box, which is quite community focused, or even going to the yoga studio. We can become part of a community and experience in-person interaction, which is really beneficial for us, especially when we spend so much time on screens. And like the fresh air and daylight exposure that comes with things like going out for runs as well, and going out for walks in fresh air. It's so good for us.
At this time of year.
Yeah, exactly. When it's like dark at 4 p.m.
And something that I get when you said about the osteoporosis, which something because I've started to work with a lot more women that are kind of going through menopause and things like that. And I think a lot of people, maybe they would, it's becoming a lot more accepted now to like resistance train, for example, not your whole way through your life, but a lot of people kind of shy away from that, I guess, if they're coming into the space when they are, you know, sort of pushing maybe towards their late 40s and 50s, if they haven't had prior experience before. And a lot of people are thinking, you know, is there something special I can do when I'm going through this part of my life? But when our hormones are changing, the best thing you can do is just exactly the same as anything that we'd say to any client, is